So welcome to the actual final day of the road to the trade deadline, or kind of the post video of the end of the deadline, whatever you want to call it. But this is kind of my reaction to everything that has played out as far as the trades go. Now, buyout market and everything's totally different. I'll cover that at some point when we get more information. But this is literally just trades, and I'm not going to go through everything. But I do want to show you guys the transactions page here on SpotTrack and just how much has happened. A bunch of people got waived. Some fairly big names. Spencer Dinwiddie is probably the most notable one, I will say. But a lot of people did get waived, but a lot of people also got traded. There weren't a ton of massive names, but there was quite a bit of activity. So instead of going through the transactions page here, we're going to do something a little different. And we're going to actually look at how this affects the standings, in my opinion. There were a lot of different kind of up and down moves, I would say. A lot of good teams got better, some to the detriment of their future, whereas some relatively mediocre to bad teams did the opposite and either got worse or just continue to not choose a direction. So we're going to start first with kind of our bad news, our oh no's, our oh what are you guys doing, please do something different. And we're starting with, unfortunately, a team that I've actually really enjoyed watching as of late, with the Houston Rockets. Now, the Rockets, I had kind of surmised, were in a range to actually do something. They had young tradable assets that people were wanting. I noticed Jae'Sean Tate was in a bunch of trade ideas, but they didn't do anything. Now, luckily for them, the Jazz did do a fair amount that are probably going to fall out of the play-in, but the Warriors have been relatively decent lately. So if you can't jump them, you're in the same position. And yeah, you probably did better than you did last year, but for bringing on two big contracts, is it really a sign of development or making any kind of progress? So realistically for me, the Houston Rockets are staying here. They're not going to get in the play-in. Now, if they did, I would be happy. But I really don't think that any of the teams above them are drastically getting worse, save for the Jazz. And who knows, the Jazz may even hold on, but the Warriors are probably going to jump them because the Warriors are just ahead of them in terms of games. Now, we jump up to the Lakers, another team who did nothing. Now, I think that the situation in LA is a little bit more complex. You do have big personalities, right? And while the Lakers do tend to like stars, they kind of painted themselves in the corner over the last few years and weren't able to do anything major. So they just didn't do anything. Maybe they're looking at the buyout market, but if I remember correctly, I think they're one of the teams that... No, okay, yeah, they should still be able to do some buyout stuff. But, yeah, just nothing. So, maybe the Jazz and the Lakers fall out, but at the same time, the Rockets and the Warriors didn't do anything to get better, so I don't really foresee the Lakers getting any further up this ladder, but I don't think they're falling down. The big problem with that is I don't know that LeBron stays next season, and maybe in the long term it's good for LA, to be honest, but no movement, no trade is better than bad trade, but I don't know that that's the case here for LA. And the last one, we're going back over to the East for the Bulls. And the Bulls are weird, because the Bulls were kind of what everyone expected was what the Jazz did, or, to a very crazy degree, the Pistons, and just started selling people left and right. Alex Caruso, you're gone. DeMar DeRozan, you're gone. Maybe if they got lucky, someone would take the now entirely injured Zach LaVine, even though I don't think you could trade him at this point. But they didn't do anything. Nothing. Didn't waive anyone. Probably not going to pick anyone up in the buyout market. And while I can understand having like faith in the core you have, just because Kobe White has gotten like blown up this year, nothing else. Like, there are a lot of good players on your team playing well, but there's not enough of them to like justify not making a move. Either, you know, double down on this group you have to try to get better, or just say, hey, let's, you know, get ready for next year. You know, maybe Lonzo comes back next year, and, you know, we kind of go from there. Didn't do anything. So this is, I think, the best they're going to do this year. Play in, and realistically, I don't see them beating the Magic. I don't see them beating the Heat, and I'd kind of be surprised if they beat the Hawks in a play-in game. Now, kind of moving up the list here to the teams that set themselves up for the future. So not necessarily losers, but in the short term, made some sacrifices to get better potentially in the long term. And if we're starting in, there are a couple here in the Eastern Conference we're going to talk about. We're going to start with the bottom of the barrel, unfortunately, the Detroit Pistons. I think they did what Chicago should have. Like, they realized something is not working. We cannot keep doing this. Let's change something up. And they did. They did. They got rid of quite a few players. And they got back some pretty good pieces. I mean, they got back Quentin Grimes, probably the most notable name. That's probably likely to stay part of that central core. Malachi Flynn, Ryan, whatever his last name is, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, Evan Fournier. So they even got some, like, trade pieces out of it. If they don't want to play Fournier, they can kind of repackage him into a trade for something, I guess, with his expiring contract. But then by then it might be too late. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I think they would still be able to in the offseason. But yeah, I mean, not bad, right? You got rid of a lot of guys. You waived Killian Hayes, which was wild. Just straight wave Killian Hayes. But I mean, that is, I think, what a lot of people that follow the Pistons were kind of wanting, was just do something, right? Like, make a gamble, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll continue to chant to sell the team. But I think Detroit next year is going to not be this horrible team right now. Like, I don't know that they jump up into the play-in next year with what they got, but I think they've positioned themselves better to make some moves coming year. Then you get the Raptors. The Raptors are so confusing to me, but I think they did better. From actual trade prospects, I don't think they did better necessarily, but I think what they did was they, like, signaled a direction change, right? I mean, trading OG, trading Pascal Siakam, that was a pretty big indicator, but kind of clearing the rest of the cupboard, save for Gary Trent, they get rid of Dennis Schroeder and somebody else, I can't remember off the top of my head who. They get back Spencer Dinwiddie and Thaddeus Young and waive both of them. Not small contracts, mind you, either. Weird that they were just like, bye. But I think this is signaling we really believe in what Emmanuel Quickley and this young core can do. We don't really need another point guard to soak up those minutes as much. Like, of course you want to back up, but you don't want this really seasoned veteran who's been very vocal about wanting to be in the starting lineup behind the young guy you just brought in that you're kind of building your future around. And waiving some of those contracts, I think, in the offseason is going to help them in terms of offering Emmanuel Quickley a bigger paycheck. So that is good. And once again, that's kind of what everyone wanted the Bulls to do, is do something, right? Either show you're dedicated to the Kobe White young core, or just, do something for next year, and they just stood pat. So, but then if we look over here in the West, we have the Hornets, which was a team I did not expect, or not the Hornets in the West. The Hornets are in the East. What am I talking about? Sorry, my cat is in the process of harassing me. The Hornets, I actually think, made a lot of really good moves, and I think they're the team that did, I think, by far the best in terms of not necessarily picking a direction, but getting players back for next year. So the Hornets, they got a lot of guys, but as far as the most notable names, Trey Mann, Vasilije Micic, Davis Bertans, Seth Curry, and Grant Williams. I don't watch a lot of Hornets games. Like, I've watched a little bit for Brandon Miller because he's been popping off lately, but I tried to go out in kind of steep myself in a little bit of Hornets fan culture to see how did people think about this. Because as an OKC fan, Trey Mann and Micic, I'm really excited to see them hopefully play somewhere else, just to get minutes, because they just were not getting a ton of minutes on the Thunder, and I think both of them have a lot of potential. And people are generally like, they either are really high on Micic or just don't know who he is, which is reasonable. It's his first year in the league, coming off of not coming to the league in favor of EuroLeague for like almost 10 years. And generally, pretty universally, they like Trey Mann. So that's a good sign. The way a lot of them kind of approached it is we traded out some guys we didn't really need necessarily. They were guys that were kind of win now moves that didn't pan out. And now we're kind of resetting, right? You have kind of in the short term, Trey Mann, well, LaMelo's out, being this generator, right? He does a lot of work. He's absorbed a lot of how OKC plays, that if, your big star guy, say Brandon Miller or Miles Bridges or LaMelo, when he comes back, gets double teamed, can't do anything with it, Trey Mann's going to go over and do something. Like, he's going to try to find the ball. He puts in a lot of that work. He's kind of not as team-oriented in terms of his play style, but he's absorbed a lot of that from OKC, so he's not purely just an ISO scorer. Micic, Bertans, Seth Curry, and Grant Williams can all kind of play that adult-in-the-room type role. Like, there's no illusion that this is LaMelo's team, but Micic can fully facilitate an offense. We've seen him do that with OKC in those second units. And if he's out there with the starters, he can do that, but he's probably still second unit guy, which just helps the Hornets not kind of drop out in those areas. Seth Curry and Bertans are good, just catch and shoot shooters. And then you have Grant Williams, who's like a really solid role player. And, well, Dallas had a lot of high hopes for him. He just didn't pan out the way they wanted. I think he's going to be a better fit in Charlotte, just because they have a lot more need. And if he's not hitting as high of a ceiling but covering more roles, I think generally they're going to be into that. And that leads us to the climbers. So before we get here, nothing of this really changes so far from what we've seen. The Pistons, the Hornets, the Raptors for next year, going to be better, but this year is probably not changing their rankings too much. The Jazz are probably going to fall down, so we're going to move them, say here, we're going to move Golden State up, and move the Rockets up, just outside the play-in. So outside of that, that's really all that we've changed so far. The climbers, though, the big movers, the shakers, the guys that got better this year. We're going to start, of course, with my lovely, lovely Thunder here. And they got Gordon Hayward for Trey Mann, Micic, Bertans, and seconds. Pretty solid deal. This is kind of the, ideal situation, right? Gordon Hayward, I know, is older, which, brings experience, something that people have continually said that the Thunder lack, and they do. But he's also injury prone. Now, if he's not playing 30 minutes a night, maybe he's not as injury prone. We'll see. But he is effectively, without as more of the advanced playmaking that Giddey brings, more of just the stability that Giddey doesn't bring. So if something's going wrong, Giddey's not doing Giddey things, or defenses have just kind of locked him out and he's not sure how to handle it, you can pop Gordon Hayward in, he brings a little bit of stability to that. Whether that's starting, whether that's closing, whether that's spot minutes, I think this is a good addition going into the playoffs to bring experience, but also bring stability, bring some calm, bring someone in that can just say, hey guys, just chill out, right? He's not running offenses. He's still kind of in this role player E type situation. He's not one of the big three, but he is someone that helps. Now, I don't know that this is going to change because, like, basically these 4 teams are roughly tied for first. So it's really hard to say what moves what. But I do think the Thunder are going to stay in this range, right? I would honestly think to move them to second. But who knows? There's a lot of things that can change. Mostly because the Nuggets didn't do anything. So I legitimately think just out of... Clippers didn't either, but the Clippers been on a heater. So there we go. I think starting off, Gordon Hayward at least puts the Thunder in second, if not maybe a little further into the playoffs. But we'll see, just kind of tampering expectations. The Celtics got better, but the Celtics are in first, so I can't do this. Can't move them up anymore. They got Jaden Springer. Young, pretty good backup point guard if they need it. And Xavier Tillman, good backup center. They're trying to address some of those depth concerns people have. And yeah, that's exactly what you want to see from a team like this. They don't need a star. They've got enough stars. They've got probably the best top 6 rotation in the league right now. So you don't have to worry about it too much. Now, another team, I think the team that maybe makes the biggest jump in here is the Knicks. The New York Knicks got Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks. 2 guys that they really could use right now, right? If you want another scorer to put next to Brunson, realistically, Bogdanovic has been really good at that in Detroit, so put him here. He's going to be good at it here probably. And Alex Burks can kind of help come in either when one of those guys are hurt or in the secondary units to kind of help run offenses, which is kind of what you've been missing for a minute now anyway. So your starting lineup gets better, your secondary unit gets better, you're overall taking a step forward. And really, they didn't have to send out like a ton for this. They Quentin Grimes, Malachi Flynn, Evan Fournier, guys that weren't really playing for them anyway. Now, I don't know that this really puts them above the Cavs, but I do think... What is going on here? Oh, weird. But the Cavs, I do think... Oh, hold on. I do think the Cavs could potentially get worse over the season, just because more of their guys are coming back, and I think that complicates their offense a little bit. Now, they've still been really good. I don't know that they're not falling out of the playoffs by any means, but I think the Knicks making these moves really does help make something happen, right? So we're going to go ahead and move the Knicks up to second. I know that's a little crazy, but hear me out. Move the Bucks down, move the Cavs down. And yeah, I think that's pretty fair so far. The Knicks, I think, can actually do quite a bit of work this year. Now, a weird one that I don't think is going to drastically change anything, but the Nets. The Nets, I still don't know. I don't think they have done as much to, like, cement their future. But I do think with Ben Simmons coming back and some of the moves they've made, they've probably got at least a little better this year and possibly enough to get into that play-in race, which, once again, making moves to get into the play-in's not bad if, like, you're a young, developing team. But it's also getting into the play-in. Like, I don't foresee the Nets going on a deep playoff run. So, that, you're burning resources to it, but they didn't really burn anything crazy, so it's not like the end of the world. But Spencer Dinwiddie goes out, Thaddeus Young goes out. They get Dennis Schroeder, they get Jordan Goodwin, and they get Keita Bates-Diop. This is something that I think a lot of people saw Dennis Schroeder and Spencer Dinwiddie as kind of like a 1-1 trade, like you're trading to trade. But I think Dennis Schroeder legitimately can do a better job, but a probably better job in the situation the Nets are in, right? You have Ben Simmons, you have Mikal Bridges, you have Cam Johnson, you have Cam Thomas, you have Nick Claxton for now. You have guys that are good. You just really need someone to run the offense, and Ben Simmons does that to a degree. You kind of want someone outside of him to do it. Not that he's bad at it, but if he's going to be one of your main scoring options and being kind of this point forward type build, you almost want to try to alleviate pressure on him and just let him focus on finishing, because he, generally speaking, is pretty good at that. Dennis Schroeder does that, and Dennis Schroeder can score. And I think Dennis Schroeder, from being kind of I'll say a pure point guard, but effectively a pure point guard, is a little bit better in that department than one Spencer Dinwiddie. So I think the Brooklyn Nets do go ahead and move up here. We move the Hawks down, move the Nets over. And yeah, I think they get into the play-in. I don't know that they go very far, and for a team that's got as many talented players on it as they have, I don't know. This is still, I think, going to be, I don't want to say a disappointing season, but not a great one. Now, we get to go back over to the West. The Mavericks made moves, and people are kind of all over the board on it, right? The Mavs get PJ Washington, Seth Curry, Grant Williams, and a 27 first round pick, which is top 2 protected. And they also got another big that I cannot remember the name of, and I had it written down, and I just did not keep it where I could see it. Daniel Gafford, there we go. And I just double check here, because I want to say I saw that Daniel Gafford got, no, not Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford's still there. So they got a big wing, someone that's probably a little closer to what they kind of originally envisioned Grant Williams to be. Now, whether PJ Washington is actually that or not is hard to say, but, if it wasn't working, try something different, right? And then Daniel Gafford brings in something that can address the concerns of their big situation. Kings didn't do anything. Pelicans didn't do anything. Suns did some stuff, but it's, kind of on the fringes because they can't afford to do anything else. Yeah, I think that the Mavs jump the Kings. Kings are one of those teams that I can just not predict right, so who knows? And yeah, I think they might jump the Pelicans, but I kind of doubt it. The Mavericks are good, but they need kind of their entire core to be really good, right? Like, if you're missing one of Luka, Kyrie, or at this point, Derek Lively, you're going to have a struggle bus of a time. And unfortunately, all three of those guys have been really up and down this year in terms of injuries. So, who knows? Now, if they're all on the floor, healthy, ready to go, I could see them being kind of into that, 4-5 range, maybe. But realistically, a good Mavs team I could see beating the Pelicans, beating the Suns, probably not beating the Nuggets, probably not beating the Clippers, probably not beating the Thunder consistently, or beating the Wolves. So they did get better. They'll probably get into the playoffs because they're probably the best team down here in the play-in, but I don't know that they go really far into the playoffs. And that leaves us with the Timberwolves up here. And yeah, the Timberwolves signed Monte Morris. They do a trade, get some Monte Morris in, and yeah, not a big splash, but much like Mike Conley, this is a guy that is needed, right? When Mike Conley's not on the floor, the offense is kind of on fire, right? You need someone to bring some stability, be kind of the adult in the room, if you will, for the offense. Run things, facilitate things, be that connector, that glue guy. This is what Mike Conley is. Monte Morris is kind of that as well. So at least those secondary units, or if Mike Conley is injured, you have someone you can fall back on. Because what we've seen is when Mike Conley is not on the floor, the Timberwolves don't do great. So they have brought stability. The Thunder have brought stability and experience. Is it enough? We don't really know. Clippers did nothing. Nuggets did nothing. They really didn't need to. I think the Clippers actually did do something. Yeah, They traded, oddly enough, Ishmael Kamagate, who's a center. Or they got traded that guy from Denver. So these two made a trade, but it's kind of like a maybe, like especially for the Clippers, like a third to fourth string center at this point. Not really doing anything drastic. The Suns did put some people out on the periphery and do decent, but I don't think that jumps them over any of these four. Pelicans didn't do anything. Mavs did some stuff. The rest of the team's kind of not really prevalent this year. And the Celtics, the Knicks, the Cavs, the Bucks, the 76ers, the Pacers. Pacers did do some stuff, but I think it kind of ended out being net neutral. 76ers did some stuff, but I don't know that it really solidifies them in the event that Joel Embiid does not come back by the end of the season. Now, maybe a playoff run, but even coming off an injury like that, it's hard to see if he'll even be back to close to 100%. He didn't do anything. Might do something in the buyout market. I mean, they did the Terry Rozier stuff, but it doesn't really seem to be working too well. Orlando Magic didn't do anything. Bulls didn't do anything. Nets did some stuff. Hawks didn't do anything, and so forth. So, yeah, long video, I know. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. I do appreciate that. When we get some stuff on the buyout market, I'll probably do something similar to this again, because that could make some changes, but it's probably not going to be a big splash. So I think generally this is kind of where it'll stand, but I'll still redo kind of my road to the playoff rankings, if you will, and we'll kind of go from there. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me, guys. Be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll get notified when the Are They Good Magic video drops here in about a week.